Welcome to Rich Your Soul, Toni Bergins. It's great to have you join us today.
Thank you so much. I'm very much looking forward to this.
And I am excited to learn from you. We always start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
Wow, money was a very guarded subject. We didn't talk about it very much. I think it was the biggest fight around the house would be, oh my God, a bill came in the mail, and my parents would fight, and it was a toxic subject. Let's be honest. So my relationship with money has always been a little. I had to unpack a lot of that in order for my own success to come to me and to allow that.
In what way did you have to unpack it?
Well, I didn't realize my relationship with money was kind of riddled with this is an anxiety producing thing. This is a problem. This is the thing that causes people to fight. This is a big issue. We don't, they're very generous people, my parents, and we lived, a rather kind of upper middle class life for most of my childhood. We went from like one level to another level during my childhood. We moved, from one small house to the big house and everything shifted. So I had to look at how I believe I deserve or can receive or can make money because I was told I had to be a this or a that to make money. And I chose a completely different path. And I did not become, I have a bunch of professional degrees, but I didn't follow those for my money path and for my career path because my heart wanted something else.
I guess I'm a little confused because if you moved to the nicer neighborhood and all, but
Yep.
yet money was still a big issue for your parents.
Oh yeah, always. It was always something. It's hard to explain. I think my father always felt like he didn't have enough, and that's from his childhood of upbringing, never having enough, never being quite successful enough. Like I remember stories like we didn't have a pool or, because he was honestly, my dad is I'm going to tell you the truth. My dad is a Harvard lawyer, so he believed that he should be this big successful thing, but he chose his own path and he put up his own shingle. He did not want to be associated with a whole firm. So he did it the hard way. He did it as a loner. And he's really amazing man. He's very generous and a deep soul. And he wanted to do it his own way. And my mom started making money much later in my life. She started her career probably when I was around 13. She went back to school and got a degree, and then she became a therapist, and then she became a school teacher, and she started making her own money because she wanted her own empowerment. It felt like he was controlling, how, I mean, I shouldn't speak for her, but I know that those are the fights they would have, and I think that for people of that era, they're in their late 80s, showing your wealth through or showing your monetary, through being like part of the community felt good to them. I'm different. I mean, I don't really care what anybody thinks of me. I have a different mindset.
And it's true. Like when you look at different generations, they all had very different attitudes towards money. So I'm guessing if your dad's that age, then his dad
Yes.
and parents would have probably come up through the Depression if they were in the United States.
Yes, they did. And that was my grandparents really imprinted on us very strongly as kids. And that's one of my stories that I was going to share with you about my grandfather. They lived in one apartment their whole lives. They did not drive. They ate like the same food, like basically every day. They had their specific diet. They lived to be in their late 90s, so maybe it worked, but they were very budget conscious. I mean, it was a very, very strict life that they lived
And
around
so
money. Yeah,
I could see how with that your dad would act the way he acted
right. Of course.
because
It's all
that's what he was brought up to. And then it sounds like you broke free.
To some degree, I have. I'm still breaking. I'm still breaking free. I'm still on the path of allowing more abundance into my life and really recognizing that money is an exchange of energy. And I give a lot of energy to the world, so I'm ready and I'm receiving energy back in the form of money. And we're doing it right now as we're speaking about it.
Yeah. And I know you're more on the creative side. And I know with creatives, it's a much more of a struggle because
Oh
it,
yeah,
it becomes internalized. It becomes much more internalized
right. The
as into
starving
their,
artist, right? The starving artist
yeah,
mindset and all that. Yeah. I've
correct.
broken through a lot of that over many years of teaching and creating my own business. But I definitely went through that. I was actually a teacher first in the public school system in New York, and then I moved to Massachusetts, public school system there. And I could have stayed in that and had a very specific income my whole life and a pension, but I didn't choose that. I chose to follow my heart and go off into complete entrepreneurship And I actually, you don't know this about me, but I actually have owned restaurants as well. I didn't tell you that. You didn't
No,
get that in the
no,
bonus.
I, I, so the next group next to starving artist is starving restaurateurs, because people don't realize that restaurant can be completely full, and the restaurant business by its very nature is not usually very profitable.
Yeah, it's an
It's a
intense business. It
it's
is
an
so
intense
intense.
business.
I always say don't wish it on your worst enemy. I know it might be your dream, but it's really hard. But with one of my past relationships, we owned restaurants.
Yeah. All right. So you've had a good bit of business experience.
Yes.
Was there other things growing up that created issues for you later on in life or as you were growing up?
That's a little bit of an open-ended question there. Like on what level? Emotional, nervous system. I mean, a lot of things. My family of origin is wonderful and beautiful and very energetic and very emotional. So we had a lot of intensity. So for me to really calm my nervous system, focus on what I wanted, I have a lot of energy. So a lot of my kind of ADD tendency would have me jumping around a lot and not being as focused as I would have liked. So having a job was easy for me to show up every day. Being an entrepreneur, I've had to really buckle down and put myself to work.
Well, in that case, you are your own boss and you've got to hold yourself accountable, which not everyone can do.
One thing that makes you hold yourself accountable is having people work with you and for you, and
Mm.
teammates and employees. That makes you buckle down. Let me tell you, it's like having kids. You're like, okay, I have kids now. I got to make money. So that definitely kicked me into gear when I had my kids. I was like, I have to make money. Like, how am I going to do this? So it took my art to
No,
the next level.
and that's true. Having to make payroll is kind of that great equalizer, I'll call it, in
For
being
sure.
able to do that. School was good as you were growing up?
God, school. Oh, I have a very mixed relationship with school. I was very talkative, chatty, smart. I was bored. I had a lot of problems in school. I did not fit in very well. I took some of the advanced classes, took some of the remedial classes. I was all over the place, but I was really good at school. So I just like whizzed through it. I was like, let me just get through this awful time. I had a few teachers who I loved, but mostly I was kind of like, be quiet, Toni. It was like everybody was telling me to be quiet. So my whole business is about having people express themselves more fully so we don't get shut down.
And yet you went into teaching.
I did. And I loved it for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
What made you decide to leave?
It's a funny story, actually. And it has to do with, so this is so crazy. I never talk about this. So this is fun. I was teaching at a really interesting school on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And I'm going to tell you the story. So I was teaching English and I loved it. And my kids were pretty responsive. We had some issues because it's hard to pay attention when you're in eighth grade, ninth grade, very hard to pay attention. But there was one teacher that I had to sub for her sometimes because I also do math and she was away. So I was the math teacher sub. And I was teaching math and the kids were like, when they get an answer right, they were like, hey, Miss B, we get to go in the boxes now. I'm like, what do you mean we get to go in the boxes? What are the boxes? And along the side of the room, there are all these boxes. I didn't know what was in them, but what was in them was gifts, beautiful hats, sunglasses, sneakers. She had everything. This woman had everything. So she was teaching her kids through reward. And I wasn't doing that. In my class, I was teaching them through, the reward is learning. So it really triggered me and I did not like it. And I decided to myself, if I have to teach that way, if I have to teach this art of language and creativity and writing and in a capitalist little system where if they got it right, they would get to go in the boxes, I said, I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore. And it was hard. I had to make a call where I decided I didn't want to teach at that school anymore and I left because the other teachers were doing these gimmicks to get the kids to learn and I didn't think that was for me, so I left. Isn't that crazy though? Like it's interesting because maybe it was a good idea. She got a lot accomplished by doing it that way. You see
So
what I mean?
I look at the psychology of money and the psychology of behavior.
Yes.
I know that as an employer, you start paying people certain ways, you take away their intrinsic desire.
That's what I
And
thought.
then it turns into almost like a task. And then it turns into a hated task. And
Hmm.
so you literally are teaching kids that learning doesn't have any intrinsic motivation.
That's why I left. I said, I can't do this. I don't want to be in this. So I left and went to a different school, did a couple more years. But that was really what got me. It was that I wanted to teach because people wanted to learn. I didn't want to teach because they were going to get a reward for learning. So it's the school system is just got a lot of issues intrinsically in it at this point. But that's a whole other story for a whole other conversation.
It is. But I think part of that is the kids are told what to learn. They don't get to choose how, where, and where
Exactly.
they want to focus. So throughout this time, though, you've done a lot of self development.
Yes.
Yeah. So one of those things, it's something I've heard about. I've never been to. And it comes up a lot just in reading about people. Kripalu.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about what that was like and what that helped you with?
It's such a beautiful place. Kripalu, like many other holistic healing art centers like Omega. People have heard of Esalen from Mad Men, and Omega Institute is another one of these places. But these are places that adults go and they get to learn what they want to learn, whether it's communication, whether it's yoga, whether it's breath work, whether it's therapy stuff, all kinds of personal growth topics. And everything is covered from diversity and social justice to, it's just a massive, massive field. But when you go to a place like that, something happens to you, I believe, because you're in an environment of support. Like you show up and you're welcomed in and you're going to take this course and you're going to cry and you're going to laugh and you're going to meet people and you're going to dig in to your story and you're just so open because everyone's going to do it together. It's not like you're a weirdo and you're like telling your friends, oh, I went to therapy and it's really helping me. You're actually in a place where everyone's kind of on the same page, so you feel safer. So that's why people are attracted. It's like going home. They feel so good when they arrive. Kripalu was an ashram originally of a guru and everything. There was a yogic guru there, and people followed that guru and learned yoga and all the things. And then over many years, Kripalu has become more of a holistic healing center. The guru has left, and now it's more of a university of personal growth. This is the way I look at all these places. They're like universities for personal growth. Because now in college, you can study many more things that you couldn't study before. Now you can study this. But at these places, you go in for an intensive, and that's what does the transformation. It's like this: you get there, you stay for a certain number of days, and you're going to pack it with like everything you can pack it with, either to learn or maybe you're going for relaxation and you're just going to relax for 3 days, something that you don't normally do in your daily life. So it really takes you out of daily, puts you into this altered state of, okay, I'm going to be open and I'm going to experience something new. And that's what happened to me. I arrived there. I was in my early 20s. I was teaching in New York at this point, and I had this epiphany. Like I just burst into hysterics and I had a catharsis, which I haven't really had one of those in that way, maybe a couple of times in my life, during like plant medicine journeys or things like that, breath work, things that are really significant. But this was just dancing. This was just me meeting this amazing teacher who I studied with later. And I just ended up in a puddle of tears on the floor. And I realized that I wanted to do something different with my life. And I changed my life on a dime that day. It was like one of those significant experiences. Yeah, I was 23. And I feel lucky I had an early onset awakening. So by 24, I was like, all right, this teaching thing is going to last me a little while, but I got to do that thing. I got to do that dance thing. I got to dance because movement and just this embodiment just brought me out of my head and into myself, like my true self, my authentic self was expressed.
And that the question I was going to ask you was that before or after you were a teacher, but it sounds like that was part of your whole
Yes.
transformation out of that. And of course, you can change on a dime, but then it takes a little while to get the rest of life to catch up, right?
Exactly. It took me about, 6 more years to catch my life up to where I wanted to be. And then I became that person who brought that same experience to others. And then I developed journey dance, which is my own dance form out of that because I had been studying, psychodrama, which is really important to me, which is it's like a theater of your internal mind, a theater of your emotions. I was studying that at the same time, and I studied, psychology in college and all that stuff. So kind of wove everything together with creative visualization and how do we heal? That's what I really wanted to study. So my whole life has been a study of healing, really. How does one heal? How do we come to terms with the past, like we're talking about, and move it forward and make your story into your superpower, into your gold, into your personal medicine, mission, why you're here on the planet.
And we're going to talk about the book in a moment. Before we
Yeah.
do, you mentioned two things, and I just want to touch base on them: breathwork and plant medicine.
Hmm.
How have they helped you?
I have just had such an incredible experience with plant medicine, and I never thought I would do it. So, just for those of you who are like, "What is plant medicine?" I only 5 years ago did I begin my plant medicine experiences, and I don't do drugs or whatever you call them, but plant medicine is different. Plant medicine is indigenous people's medicine and brought from all different cultures. And I've studied with shamans from different parts of the world to do these medicines, and they are life changing. They are truly, the way I'll describe plant medicine, if I could for a moment, is say that it is a oneness experience where whatever plant medicine you choose to do, you will have some kind of reckoning with yourself as part of the cosmos, as part of the earth, as part of the energy, the collective. And then there's you, the individual, and all your experiences. But something happens where you feel a sense of, I call it the altered state awareness of oneness. It can happen during breath work. It can happen during dance. That's why my work's called journey dance, because I'm taking people on a journey similar to plant medicine. So the plant medicine helped me. One particular experience I'll share with you is about the money story. My first time I did a medicine called San Pedro, which is otherwise known as Wachuma. It is a medicine from a cactus. And I studied that with a Peruvian shaman who I continue to work with, who's absolutely a powerful force in my life. And I was in the medicine journey, and I got this realization that I had been carrying my whole life a wound of my family of origin that comes from my grandfather, because that medicine is called grandfather medicine, which is amazing because the first time I took it, it was all about grandfather for me. And I loved my grandfather. We were not very close, but in the book, the last chapter is my story about me and my grandfather having one moment together alone. I don't know if most people spend time with their grandparents alone, but I didn't really. It was always a family thing. So when I spent time with him alone, he told me that he had wanted to be a singer, and he went to Juilliard for one semester to become a baritone singer. But then he was married off into a family of pharmacists, and he became a pharmacist. And that's what he did. But he didn't live his dream. He did a couple of musical theater productions in his later years, in his 50s probably. But he never lived his dream of being a singer. And he used to always be like, "Ooh," and like sing to us. And we were like, "God, Grandpa, you have a deep voice." And he'd play all this. He was into Rachmaninoff and this big romantic music. And I was always like, yuck. But then I ended up becoming a dancer, and I love the drama of that kind of music. So I was carrying his unlived dream, which went into my father, because my father, and I don't know if he would say this, but he loved Mozart more than he loved law. He studied Mozart, was his life. I've heard every single Mozart piece that there is, and that's a lot of music, let me tell you, has been put into my brain. But I think his dream might have been that he might have been a musician, or he might have been a Mozartian professor, but he followed his path to make money and to be a lawyer. So in this psychedelic journey that I was on, in this deep space, I had to let go and say, "Grandpa, I am living my dream. I am doing dance. I'm a singer songwriter. Like, I've been constantly living my dream. So it's okay. Like, I can let go." So I wrote a whole song called "I Let Go," all about letting go of my grandfather and my father's burden that I've been carrying about not living the dream, because you can't make money living the dream. That was the story. So isn't that crazy? That's related. And here I am on your podcast. I had no idea we were going to talk about this.
And I think more and more people are science is starting to come to the realization that these things are real, that you carry emotional charge, baggage through DNA, through other ways.
Absolutely.
And it takes a while to let go of it. Now, you did it actively, sometimes just time of not having to deal with those issues of a particular upbringing, in the same way that it got bred in, it gets bred out, so to speak.
Yes, I love that.
And there's different ways to do that, but you at least became aware and let go
Yeah,
of it. And I think for those generations, and I'm kind of at that generation, I'm at the tail end of that, is you lived very systematically. Like, this is what you do. keep your job forever, you make money and be safe and
Exactly.
forget about these silly dreams of music and dance and fun and yeah. But I think today
Passion. And purpose. I feel like I could help
yes,
so many more people with my passion and my purpose than I can if I just stayed. Of course, I would have been. I loved being a teacher. I loved the kids. I had amazing relationships with them. But at some point, I was like, if I don't live my passion, I'm just gonna be resentful. And that's what both of my grandfather and my dad. I think there's resentment that happens inside your personal system when you're not living your dream and you're not doing what you came here to do. And I know that I came here to do something creative, you know. So, I've taken a lot of risks. I have. And as I said, I had restaurants, so I've taken a lot of risks. And I think it's been the best possible life I could have chosen so far.
no regrets. That's the key, right?
I'm still willing to make more money, let me tell you, but I want to do it my way.
And that's okay. And you
Yeah.
can. You absolutely can. So, what inspired you to write the book Embody? Feel, heal, and transform your life through movement.
So most of us live in our heads and we're just thinking our day and we have our automatic, as you said, system. This is what I do. This is what I do. But there's a part of us that goes into what I call the escape hatch, like where I just live sort of outside myself, watching myself, or just kind of not fully present in the moment, like eating life. I feel like there's so much more to life when you get into your body. So I've been dancing, teaching dance and movement for over 25 years, and I thought it's time to write the book and get this out into the world in a larger way so more people can access it. So it's not weird. It's not something only those people do. It's for anyone. So the book is a journey. It explains the science behind dance movement, how it is taking you into an altered state similar to doing a journey, and how you can go into yourself with your eyes closed, meet your energy, because we have a whole energy body. We have an emotional body, which about. Everyone knows about their emotions, right? You feel anger, you feel happy, you feel sadness. That's the emotional body. I call that. The physical body, right? You walk, you run, you drive your car, you use your computer, and you have your mental body, which is where you do all the thinking, most of us spend our time there. And then there's the energy body that is like that soul spirit body. And that gets activated with dance because music takes us places. It's mesmerizing. It's like medicine if you use it correctly, right? It's like the breath if you use it correctly. You can take yourself places and learn how to unpack your past and come into the present moment and be so present with each other that then you're like, okay, this person is here. This person is here, not half here, half there. That's what I'm looking for. Because when we're all present and we're here, then we can interact in a new way, have better relationships, better everything. Everything is better when we're in the moment, not drifting in different directions.
It's interesting you talk about the energy body and music and how it all comes together. And I had an aha a while ago. I couldn't understand why people would go to these nightclubs with the deep bass and the banging and you start to feel it, right?
Yeah.
But here's what I also realized, and I didn't know it. The energy at that level is literally like the lowest level of energy.
Mm,
And so you're playing because when you look at the energy spectrum within the body, you can be down at the bottom, which is fear and
shame.
anger and unsafe and shame. That bass music is playing at that energy level.
Mm,
And so, but if you're at that level, then you're comfortable at that level, right? Because it's the
mm, mm.
same thing with money. Everyone has a money temperature. Some people are comfortable making 50 grand a year, and some people are comfortable making 50 million a year. And
Right.
a person who's happy at 50,000 would probably feel really uncomfortable at 50 million. And so a lot of people I think are stuck in that low energy state. And so being in a place with low energy creates that. Whereas if you go to a place with high energy, if you're not comfortable there, you're gonna feel a little weird or out of it. And I know in your book, I think you had like 30 something songs that you put in there to create the music. I think all your music is high energy music. And it's almost I noticed it was I call it double ear. So like you're getting different sounds to both ears, which creates a different beat and a different experience. But you have to be You have to be okay with that, because I
Right.
think
I
some
love
people
this.
might freak out with it.
I love this. I want to speak to that. So I love you talk about the temperature. So if money is what you're looking for, you can increase your vibration to receive money by doing the dance work because you will up level your vibration by moving through the shame, the fear, the anger, getting to the heart, the prayer, the celebration, the joy. One of the things that I talk about in the book is that I want joy to be our baseline emotion. So if you can, dance, move your body, feel joyful, then when you go into the darker, I don't like that word, the more difficult emotions, you can come back to joy. You can always come back to that vibration. So we can do manifestation work through the dance as well. One of my dances in the book for people is about getting into a high state, like they call it peak state. You're grooving, you're rocking, you start to feel like, okay, I can receive more now. I can receive more now. I'm ready to receive more now. I can build, I can create, I can focus my energy on a higher vibration. And that could be the money vibration if that's what you're after.
Well, and it's I think all of these things go together. In other words, you're not going to vibrate up here for money and down here for something else. Your
Exactly.
vibration state is going to attract all of the things around that state. So I think that's really true. It's funny as I'm thinking about this, there's two events that I've been to which are very high energy. Brendan Burchard and Tony
Yes,
Robbins.
of
And you
course.
know what they do at Tony Robbins? It's like a rock concert,
It
right?
is. I've been there.
He cranks up the music
Peak
and
state. Yep.
peak state. And you can go for 12, 14 hours a day in that type of situation, because everyone is again, there's a concert where everyone's vibrating at a whole different level, and you
Absolutely.
feel that energy, and it comes back through.
And that's becoming more and more popular, which is good. People are becoming more and more interested in going to peak state. And journey dance, in the process of what I do, we go to peak state every time we teach. We go to peak state. At some point, we're just blissed out in peak state. And that's when I talk to people about, I like to take the psychology. What part of you needs to be released at this point? Like what old story, what old mental thought pattern? Because the thoughts have energy. So if I always think I'm not good enough, or I'm never going to make it, or these things are in my mind, like I'm just in scarcity, victim, all these consciousnesses that are they're going to pull your vibration down. We have to look at those, like Joe Dispenza. He has you look at that and say, okay, I'm no longer going to play in that field. I'm going to play in this field, and keep pulling ourselves up towards the direction we want to go. So the book is motivational in nature. It's about, but I also don't shy away from the difficult emotions. Some people need to feel the grief. If you just stuff it, it doesn't get processed. So my work is about processing the grief, processing the anger, process it so that you can then move into the peak state in a real way, in a real sense. If that makes sense to you.
It does. One of the biggest things I've learned is you can't stuff it. Like, yes, you can stuff it for day to day,
Right.
but if you're trying to get to peak state, you're not going there until you let go of all the things holding you back.
Yep.
And in the same way, if you want to have that kind of life, and it's not to say that you need to make money, but if you want, let's call it a peak life where you're enjoying and having fun and doing those things and doing it on your terms, you have to let go of all that baggage, because you can't
Absolutely.
play holding on to it. So you can't stuff it.
It's a courageous life, I'll tell you. It takes courage and some gumption to say, okay, I'm going to work on my vibration. I'm going to work on myself.
So, how did you figure out that dance and music was the answer?
Well, for me, it's the answer. It always has been. So how did I
But,
figure it out?
well,
Yeah.
does that mean it's not the answer for everyone?
You know, I think that it can be if you're willing to take the risk and try it. I think everyone can get to peak state through music. I do believe that. That's for sure. Whether you're willing to do your work or not is that's a personal question, right? Are you willing to let go? Because letting go, so here's one of the things about letting go. And they say this in many different teachings. Letting go means you might walk away from your original tribe. You might walk away from that vibration that keeps you anchored in a place you don't want to be. And that is a bit scary for some people. So if you're willing to up, what is the word? Upheave your anchor and drop a new anchor, then it's for everyone. That makes sense. But we get stuck in the pattern of the past, as we said earlier. If I believed that I could never make more money than my father, which is a very common implant people have, that they cannot surpass their father, it's called a vow. And some people, it's like some people we take them without even realize we're taking them on a spiritual level. If we believe that we will never, then we will never. But if we believe that we are here to continue to progress and evolve, what does that mean? So it might mean that it's money. It might mean that it's personal. It might mean that you stop, like let's say you have an abusive situation in your past. You become the game changer. You say, I am going to be the one who stops the cycles of abuse of the past. That is a huge thing. And if you did that, I'd be happy for you. Even however much money you make, I don't care. But it's deciding that you're going to be the game changer that really is what pushes us over into evolution, which is what I'm aiming for. Whether it's emotional presence, communication, whether it's having relationships that are so different from the past type of relationships that we are all so conditioned to having. It's just, there's so many ways to grow, so many different areas, whether it's creativity, like you never got to be creative because you went into one thing, but really you're a painter and you didn't even know it, or you're a musician, or, it could be anything. If you can break free from that, I call it break out of the box, because the box is what gets created by our voices in our head, which come from the family of origin and the society and the culture. So we could be leaving our cultures behind, and that can be very scary and challenging for some people. Or we can embrace it and pull the whole culture with us, which is the goal.
That's a difficult ask
I know.
because not everyone is willing to go. I think everybody lives pretty much in a bubble,
Yep.
right? And it's A, realizing you're in the bubble, and then B, willingness to pop the bubble or go somewhere else and try a
Yeah.
different bubble, or be okay with different bubbles and so forth.
What I love about dance, is you just said something that made me think about it, is that dance is kind of like across all bubbles, because everyone has some music they want to dance to. You go on TikTok now, it is all dancing. You go on Instagram, it is all dancing. Everybody wants to dance, whether they want to dance freely, wildly, or they want to do steps and make videos, and they want to be seen in their energy body. So if we all, when I dance in a room full of 100 people from all different cultures, ethnic backgrounds, ages, sizes, it is the most beautiful thing in the world to me, because we all can dance together. It's the one place where I think all divides get mushed. There's no division when you're dancing.
Yeah,
I
there's no,
love.
well, there is comparison, but there's not the societal comparisons. The only comparisons are probably, damn, his moves are better than mine, right?
There's, oh, that person has some nice dance pants on. One of the things I teach is that, I say, there are no mistakes in dance. It's all just shape and form and speed and movement. I don't make people do specific movements. So it's much more free and creative. And the other thing I say is don't hurt yourself. And I mean, don't hurt yourself on all levels. Don't look at, Rocky and say, oh my God, he's so good, I can't dance near him. Just dance near him and learn a little bit of his moves. That's how we learn. We learn by mirroring, by growing. That's why dance is it evolves in such an amazing way. There's classical dance that many cultures carry throughout their classical culture. And then there's free dance where people just bring everything together and become this, I like the unity idea. Pardon me.
One of the things I liked is in your book, you had questions and scales.
Yes.
But unlike most scales, because everyone's scales are 1 to 10, 1 is horrible and 10 is great, or vice versa. Yours were 1 and 10 aren't good. It's finding the center, right? And finding that for you. And I think that is so much better to stop thinking in these thoughts of extremes
Mm-hmm.
and finding where I use the word harmony, because balance is impossible. Finding it there and kind of being okay with that. What prompted you to do it that way?
I was thinking about how do I talk to people about, I made 3 scales. So one is the embodiment scale. Am I so in my body that I'm like in a lead state where I'm just attached to the floor and I can't move? Or am I so out of my body that I don't even feel my body? There's a lot of spectrum in between that. And I'm not saying one is bad and one is good. I'm saying, where are you the most present? That's what I'm looking for, is presence. Same with the emotional body. If we're so shut down, we can't feel our emotions, we're numb, we're not going to really have good relationships. If we're so emotional that we're like at the extreme, we're constantly stuck in the emotional drama of the world, we can't really have good relationships. So we have to find the center where we can feel and then come back to center. And with the energy scale, same thing. You could have a ton of energy about certain things and no energy about other things. So I like playing with the scales in terms of how it feels, not how you think it. That's why I did it the way I did it in the book, with the images and pictures instead of, 1 to 10.
And that makes a lot of sense. And we've kind of talked about this, but we haven't talked about it in this way. In the book, you talk about issues in your tissues,
Hmm.
which is kind of the same thing. There's a book out there, The Body Keeps the Score.
Yes,
And if you look in the animal world shakes it out.
absolutely.
And I truly think kids shake it out. Like when you have a little kid who's having a tantrum, what are they doing? They're shaking it out.
Absolutely.
And yet culture says, no, we're not allowed to shake it out. But dance is what? Shaking it out in a
Oh,
sense,
yeah.
isn't it?
Absolutely. There's a whole section in the book about shaking and, shaking your whole body and using it as part of the alchemy, where you take, if there's anger, if there's grief, if there's sadness, how do I move my trauma out of the body? Well, you do it through sweat, you do it through process. Again, everything takes process. We have to give ourselves time. Some traumas that happen in our past, they are relived, and it's very hard for people to move forward when they have these deep, reliving trauma. So as you mentioned, the body keeps a score. All these types of modalities, including mine, which is journey dance, is about how do I help people go from this, kind of stuck state into a flow state. That's what I'm aiming for, is I call it flow state. I want people to be able to flow. Yes, you're still going to have all the emotions, but how do you move through them, shake them off, feel them, express them, and then move forward? When I'm going through a really difficult time, I usually teach the best classes because I'm so emotionally present with what's going on for me. So I'll teach a class and everyone will be like, wow, that was amazing. I feel so much better. I released all of that emotional tension. And we can do that on a daily. We can release the emotional tension on the daily instead of holding on to it and holding on to it and holding on to it and making it more solid. So I want us to be in a flow state because we're energy, we're vibration, right? We're always moving. One thing you're always doing is changing, right? So if you're always changing, if you can take the anger, there could be a resentment from childhood that every time you try to move forward into a new relationship, this resentment comes back up and you can't be in the partnership. I mean, there's so much we could talk about with this, but if you were to go in and say, okay, what is my anger about? I'm going to feel it. I'm going to just let it move. I'm going to express it. Even if there's no story, then the next time you feel anger, you don't have as much charge because you've released some of it. It's like learning how to like let the, when you have radiators and you let that like initial heat out, then it starts moving. That's how I feel about all the emotions. When we let the charge out, we let it move. And then joy is so much easier to come back to when you're moving than when you're stagnant.
And that is so true. There was one part of the book that I kind of liked. It was where you were talking about how different things kind of go together, and depending on how they go together, kind of determines what you have. So you had resilience minus joy equals suffering. And yet resilience with joy becomes empowerment.
I'm so glad you picked up on that. That's my favorite equation.
So let's talk about that. Like how did you come up with that equation?
Well, people are talking about resilience all the time. And because we have a very intense culture, we have to move through things. Life is not always easy. So if we take everything that happens to us and we keep owning it as victimhood, as pain, as suffering, we're going to stay in that vibration. We're going to just stay in it and we're going to chew on it, and it's not really good for your heart, for your soul, for your spirit, to be constantly beating yourself up and replaying. That to me is suffering. Things are going to happen and we're going to feel sadness, we're going to feel anger, we're going to feel pain. But if we can come back to joy, if we can add a joyful practice like dance, anything that brings you extreme amounts of joy, then we say, okay, you know what? I can feel my pain and I can feel my joy. And now I'm empowered. I can say, okay, I know I'm going to feel pain again. Let's use a breakup, for example. I had a breakup a couple of years ago. I was in so much pain, so sad. And I went through lots of grief and all that. And I felt like I was like a victim for a little while. And then once I regained my joy back and I said, okay, bring it to the dance floor. I'm going to dance it out. I'm going to get into that joy state. I'm going to feel my sadness, joy, sadness, joy, sadness. It's okay. I feel empowered now. I can feel it and I can go back to joy. I don't have to stay there. That's the difference. If we stay in the suffering, we perpetuate our own suffering, or we decide we're going to bring joy into our body. Because joy is a memory. We have joy in our body. If I play you some music right now and we start snapping our fingers, Rocky, come on, snap your fingers with me, move side to side. All of a sudden we're like, okay, I remember joy. I know what this feels like. Sometimes I can feel joy. It just reminds us that we're not stuck. And that is empowerment. If you feel stuck, it's disempowerment. If you feel flow, it's empowerment. That's kind of how I speak about it. So even though we're going to feel all the feelings, if we can remember that joy is a significant part of our life, we have empowerment instead of being in the victim consciousness role and being stuck there. That's how I describe it.
Yeah, no, and people, I'm amazed at how many people make themselves stuck and refuse to let go and won't move past it's so ingrained that they can't imagine not being stuck.
Some of,
And
some of it is mental patterning that is very old, right? So, and I don't want to have everyone blame themselves for this because some of it is we've taken it on, right? So, if my father always said, I'm never going to have enough money, right? And that's in my head constantly being replayed, then if I attach to that thought, then I'm never going to have enough money either. But if I say, okay, that is a thought that comes from my dad, from his upbringing, from his father, and I am going to move and say, you know what? Every day I'm changing. Every day I'm opening up to new possibilities. Just simple things like that. Like someone once told me, some wonderful coach said, like, it's not I have to, it's I get to. Those kinds of
mhm,
little changes.
yes.
Or it's not happening to me, it's happening for me, right? These are hard when you're in the moment. I'm not going to lie. It's very hard. When I was in the moment of this breakup, I thought it was happening to me. Now, 2 years later, I am happier than I've ever been in my life. In my life. And I'm not a spring chicken. I'm happier than I've ever been in my life because I've changed my attitude. And I said, you know what? I'm going to explore. I'm going to have an adventure with my life. So it's attitude, little shifts. Just, oh, this happened for me. So I could open my heart. I became so much more open hearted after going through that grief. I didn't think it was possible. I thought I was going to shut my heart down. But instead, I've opened it like 10 times wider than I thought I could from a difficult situation that was really hard. So that's kind of I know it sounds kind of new agey, but like these little shifts, like in your mind, if you could just say, you know what, I'm not going to think that thought. The last chapter of the book is about how do we change our thoughts? Because the body, the energy, the dancing, the movement does all the stuff for you. And then you have to take the mind on. You have to take your own mind on. That's the hardest part. Meditation, sitting with your mind, listening to your thoughts and saying, hey, that thought is actually not preferred. That's a not preferred thought. Look, you get to go to the store, you get to buy whatever shampoo you want. Why can't you pick whatever thought you want? Right? Why do you have to take all the thoughts that are available? You can say, no, you know what? That old thought, you're never going to be good enough, is a waste of my time. If I listen to it, I crumple. I just crumple. But if I say, no, thank you, I am getting better every day, I start to feel that way. So you teach your body how to feel.
And we get to choose. And the brain is like a computer, so we get to reprogram our software and upgrade it when we choose to.
Yes.
And all of that is kind of a choice. And it's up to you whether you want to upgrade and reprogram and get rid of the stuff that doesn't serve you anymore.
That is literally why I do what I do. I mean, you just said it. Like, so the reason why I dance, so dance for me is going into an altered state. I'm not in the altered state right now. I'm with you. I'm present. I'm listening to everything you say. We're in a conversation. When I turn the music on, I go into an altered state. And in that altered state, I get to view myself. It's like plant medicine, the same kind of concept. I get to view myself from my higher self, from my my lower self. I could go into my abandoned parts, my wounded parts. I can talk to them and say, hey, baby, I'm already in my 50s. We're not 12 anymore. Come over here with me. Come be with me. I am so different now. I could go into the parts. I can attend to myself in this altered state because I'm not in my regular thinking. That's why doing this work, kind of the book and the dance and all the things we do to heal, helps us reprogram. We go into that neuroplasticity state where we're not in the regular day to day. We can pluck the grass and not stay in the same pathway over and over.
And I guess the music, what it does is it gives you the ability to play, and you
Absolutely.
give yourself the permission to do so and to say, hey, I'm gonna play and I have permission to do so. And we're all told you're not allowed to play anymore. That's one thing they do in school, right? No,
I
no.
don't like that.
They
I don't even want to
program
hear
that
that.
out of you, right? There's a lot of that, I think, that happens in time. And when you actually start to look at all the different societal factors that are out there and what happens, you
Yes.
get to see how much programming took place. And it
Yes.
wasn't you, it's external programming, and you can choose to accept it or to change it.
This is so key. This is, every story that I've danced with so many people. I mean, I taught at Kripalu for, more than 27 years, and I've met hundreds of people every week, and some people come and study with me in my programs, and then I get to know them, and I get to know their stories, and I get to work with people individually and really hear, okay, this is their story that they're telling themselves. And this story is so damaging. And I say, do you want to hurt yourself anymore? Do you want to keep hurting yourself anymore? When you decide you don't want to hurt yourself anymore, something changes in you. I think people come to these universities of healing when they are in so much pain or they're in so much numbness or whatever that they know they need a change. Something has happened in their life and they have to shift. And I think I'm so glad I started shifting so young because I'm not the same person that I was when I started. So now I can be like, every day I'm still changing, I'm still processing, I'm still learning, still growing. So if I'm not growing, then I'm in trouble. So I feel like saying to people, like, if growth could become I don't mean growth like necessarily financially, but of course that'd be great too if it all went hand in hand. Growth on a personal, soul, spiritual level will bring that to you because you'll be like, okay, growth is my North Star.
Yeah, I would feel really bad for a person who in their fees was the same person that they were in their 20s, because that's a long time not to change. You've got a masterclass, you help people. So just kind of tell us a little bit about it.
So with the book, when you purchase the book, there's a barcode and you go inside to my portal, which has probably 30 videos you can watch, dance with me personally together. We'll dance together. There's music. And with that, I'm offering a master class in February of 2025. And we're going to be meeting and I'll be working with whoever comes individually for a 6-week period. And we're going to go through all the questions, all the digging, all of it together as a group with dance, with movement, with expression, with writing, and really shift something that we want to shift. And we'll start with that at the beginning. Each person will have their own personal goal, and I'll be taking them through the whole practice. I'm super excited about it. It's going to be the first master class that I've ever done. So I'm really excited about it. After all these years of teacher training, I've trained 1,500 teachers. So this master class is going to be something really exciting for me. And I hope that people will jump on and say, wow, I want to feel my life. I want to like live it. I want to, eat the lemon, whatever you eat the mango, whatever it
And that is absolutely wonderful.
is.
What's your secret to living an abundant life?
Waking up every morning and telling myself, I love you, and kissing myself on my shoulders, on my hands, and saying today is going to be an amazing day.
Start with positive outlook. Absolutely. What did you learn later in life that you wish you would have learned sooner?
Wow, that relationships are so important, and that the key is honesty, radical truth, and being vulnerable. Being vulnerable and saying, I'm going to do this, even if it hurts, even if it's hard, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be real.
And I've come to learn vulnerability is a superpower. I think, going back to the parents' generation, we were taught the opposite.
Absolutely.
So Big shift there culturally. If you were to give an 18-year-old one specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
Be present in the moment as much as you can and really follow your heart. Do what you have to do to make money and don't give up your dream, even if it's on the side. Do your both. I always say don't quit your day job until you're ready to quit your day job, but do that dream. Do that dream. Live that passion because that's going to make you happy later. For 18-year-olds, I would just say work hard on what you love and work to make money too, because it's like sometimes it's not going to match up until it's ready and then it will match up. I believe that. I really do.
And that's true. It took me a long time, but now I make money doing what I love.
Yay! Me
And
too.
so then it's fun. If people would like to learn more about you, the masterclass, where can they find all of that?
They can go to journeydance.com or tonibergins.com and definitely follow me on Instagram and TikTok, Toni Bergins.
And we will put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Rocky, you're fun.
Thank you. Thanks for checking out this unedited video of the Richer Soul podcast. You can find the full episode along with all the back episodes at richersoul.com. This podcast is brought to you by Profit Comes First, where we help business owners to have a more profitable and growing business so they can live the life of their dreams. Check that out as well wherever you listen to all this content.